The longer I live, the more certain I become that juxtaposition is the secret to the whole thing. The the most important concept to understand, to have an interesting and successful, whatever that means to you, life, is to understand the concept of juxtaposition and to know how to apply it in your daily life, in your interactions, in your business dealings, and how to train your mind to be juxtaposition oriented. So I'm going to explain really briefly what I mean by that. Basically, any situation that I'm in, any personal dynamic in a relationship with somebody else, whatever our dynamic is, it doesn't matter. Every situation or every interaction, I get a sense for where the other person is emotionally, and like what they have on their plate, what they're thinking about, what they're dealing with in their own personal life. I bring that sense of where they are in their life into the conversation, and I try to be empathetic of that and understanding, so that I don't pile on, and so that I don't choose that moment to talk about something that maybe would be hurtful to them because of what they're going through, and I'm not sure exactly how I got the sense to start doing that. And I point that out because if you are somebody, or you're dealing with somebody who doesn't have that skill or that awareness, it would help to understand that maybe you or another person, if you don't see it, you don't see it. We get caught in these patterns of thinking that other people should think the way that we do, and people should be capable of the things that we're capable of, and other people should see things that we can see and understand things that we can understand. But we all have different eyes, we all have different filters, we've all had different experiences that have set us up to experience the world differently. And we are literally all experiencing the world as a unique, totally unique being. And what that means is that everyone is a minority of one. And everyone is outside of some group or some, we've all been subject to prejudice by other people, because it's prejudice to judge somebody else and treat them according to something that they can't change or control, or that is just, who they are, their gender, their nationality, like that, their sexuality, their sexual preferences. There's a whole long list of them. I don't want to get all bogged down in all that, but you know what I'm talking about. So the bottom line is that if we really knew that we are all wholly unique, that we are made up of equal parts, positive and negative energies, and that whatever we choose to amplify, whatever we choose to apply to each situation, is what our personality will reflect, and our dealings in the world will reflect, whether we decide to come to the world with our positive face forward or our negative face forward. That's all it is. And that's the idea of juxtaposition, that we're all made up of everything that there is. We are, and things can be activated, things can be encouraged, things can be discouraged, things can be turned on and shut off. And the fact is that we don't know ourselves well enough to judge ourselves or anyone else. We just don't. And every day I surprise myself by another example of my own hubris, I'm like, oh, why didn't I think of that before now? Like a solution to something. Happens to me all the time. When I allowed myself to stop seeing myself as a victim of everything, the hits just kept coming. Day after day after day, I would see another example of a situation where I thought that somebody had done me wrong, or was doing me wrong, or had disrespected me, or, betrayed me, or, where I was at a disadvantage. And then when I chose to look at it as okay, that's mine, all of it, the entire thing, then I really had to look at it. And by looking at it, I could see all the parts that I played, and then you build on that, and one day you have the awareness that you are the common denominator in your life, and then everything changes. And nothing really changes until you get to that point, because you're letting life happen to you, and then your energy is not the dominant determining factor in your life. You're letting other people's energy determine your mood or your, personality ultimately, and then your mood, your future, your life, your, everything. We do that in relationships. I know that I've done it so many times I can't even count, where, we just kind of get swept along in things, or, and I think that if we're just aware that we do that would help, because then we could just maybe cut ourselves and each other some slack. I think that would go a long way towards, I honestly think that if we could embrace ourselves and accept ourselves and each other as the beautiful, flawed, human, fragile, terribly strong and brave creatures that we are, and just give people the benefit of the doubt. Cooperation, benefit of the doubt, would lubricate the social joints, that are all gummed up right now, and so we need to get things moving within our, our dynamic, our collective dynamic, because when things stop moving, when flow stops, then things get stagnant, corrupt, and sick, and that's what's happened to us. And I know for myself that when I get that way, I get frozen. There's a paralysis. There's a numbness and a blindness. I get like a myopia, and it's because I feel like either I'm not capable, or I'm not responsible, or who gives a shit, or but mostly it's like I don't see something as my responsibility, and so I don't even see it. And I think that this is something that most of us will experience at some point in our life, and so it would help to know that this is, nothing human is alien to me. We really are made up of the same biology, the same drives, the same imperatives, and we are humans first and last, and that's our common denominator, all of us. Whether you're Asian human, African human, it doesn't matter. We're all human. That's the denominator. And the truth is that until we figure that out, and until we realize that we will never soar when the least amongst us is in the gutter, we just won't. As a people, we won't. We can't get that far from the ground when we're allowing the least among us to be that far down, because we're one entity. And so we can continue to hurt each other and blame each other and marginalize and victimize, but I hate that word, and limit and hurt each other. We can continue to hurt each other. We're just hurting ourselves. And that's just the truth. That's all there is to it. And any child who suffers is every child that suffers. That's all there is to it. So, we could, in the spirit of juxtapositions, we could take these last couple of years, 2020, end of 2019, 2020, and the beginning of 2021, and we could just flip them. We could, like I tell my kids, flip that bitch. We just flip them on their head, and decide right now, we're just going to flip this bitch on its back and have our way with it. We are going to turn this thing around, and we are going to change hate for love, change anger for kindness, and rudeness for manners, negative for positive. And that's a pretty good way to spend your time. And it's something that you can do. You can just decide, I'm no longer going to engage in hate. I'm just not going to, because I know that it ultimately, look at the thing that you value the most, whatever it is, and know that every single time you engage in hate or negative emotion, you're damaging that thing that you love the most. I'm assuming that it's a person or even a dog. I don't care, whatever. Because ultimately all dogs suffer when humans are more messed up. If you're a dog person and you've decided that dogs are the solution, that humans are not, and I see that all over the place, and I'm not judging. I don't agree. And I think that it is undermining our social order, amongst a million other things that are doing so, but that doesn't make any one thing right. When you can hear more about suffering dogs than you hear about suffering humans, about people wanting help for and soliciting funds for and generating interest, when you can generate more passion for suffering dogs than you can for suffering humans. That tells me that we are in a serious death spiral because we are self-destructive, because we don't like ourselves anymore. And that's not okay. That's not okay. That is not okay. That is going to lead to some seriously dark times, because social order is going to break down. If we can't get along and we can't cooperate, we can't get things done, like with the pandemic. And it's just going to, what's happening in Texas, power and whatever. I mean, these infrastructure things, they're just going to keep coming and coming and coming, because we have undervalued competency and work ethic and integrity and just honor, just an honorable use of your day, treating people with honor and decency and kindness and acceptance, so that you didn't have to fit into this teeny tiny niche and have all your credentials in order and never have been in, never have had a felony or never have, all these hoops that we put up for people. And then they get tangled up in the hoops and they just fall down too many times and they're just tired. They hit their head too many times jumping through hoops. And yeah, they have a felony, or they smoke pot because their body hurts, or whatever it is that they do. And limitation, block. And before you know it, they're like, fuck it, they're living on the streets. And then, yeah, what's going to stop them from breaking into your car? We act so surprised, but we've built this together. We have all built this together. It doesn't matter who did more, when, why, where, or how, or in whatever generation. It just doesn't matter. It doesn't do us any good to talk about that stuff. Why are we still talking about it? We're here now. If we don't fix this now, it's going to get worse. And it's the least amongst us who are going to suffer the most. And then it's just going to trickle up from there. So however close you are to whatever you perceive the bottom to be, just imagine that that's going to be your place in the pecking order when things just start to fall apart. And then at a certain point, it will flip it, because that's what we do. And there are a lot of people who want to flip it. They want to just overturn the whole apple cart, because it's not working for them. A lot of people, they've been working and they've been paying their taxes, and they see other people, living off their taxes. And they see government spending it willy-nilly and lining their own pockets and, flying on jets and all this crap that we see, that even if we don't have a moment of rage, our body does. We build it up and build it up and build it up, and it becomes part of our psychic field, part of our collective energy. And our collective energy needs an infusion of some health-bringing blood and oxygen, or we're going to die. We are. Long, slow, painful death. It's not going to be pretty. And there isn't going to be internet. That'll be one of the first things to go. So there won't even be distractions or diversions. Just have to talk to each other and stuff. Work together then, I don't want to give up all of our advancements. I don't want to give up the strides that we've made in human rights. We've made incredible strides. We really have. And what we're letting is a small, very vocal group of people who believe that force and aggression and anger are justified. And I disagree. I don't think that's ever justified. I think that if things fall down to disintegrate to that point, or if control is lost to that point, that that all the participants colluded. We all participate in the system, and we have our little ways that we look aside and step aside and let somebody else take care of it. And we've all benefited from the system at times, and we've all, suffered, and we've all exploited, and we've all been exploited. And, I don't want to do that math. I don't want to figure out who's the most persecuted and who deserves the most pity. And I just want to be capable of affecting a change if my gut tells me that something needs to change. And what frustrates me is that I didn't know, until I was already back on my back, like a bug on its back. I didn't know that's what I was building. I would have if I had known. And so the point is that that's why I make these videos, because if I had known before I ended up on my back, if I'd really understood, I don't know how to explain it. How could I have explained it to myself, I guess is what I'm saying, is when you're at a low level of misery and you're slowly burning your life to the ground, or we're slowly burning civilization to the ground, and we need to wake up and see what we're doing. but we're not yet at that point where our back's against the wall. And I don't know how to speak to that because my back was against the wall. You know, I had my parents' suicides on either side of me. And misery is not an option for me. It's just not an option for me, because if I let myself get miserable, suicide's an option, and then that destroys everything that I've tried to build for my kids to have, you know, a new direction and not be on the trajectory of my family for 4 generations. And I have made tremendous sacrifices so that they would have as much choice as they have, and as much autonomy as they have, and as much have, you know, done as much thriving as they've done. And you know, we all want our children to have advantages. I don't want them to have an advantage over anyone else. I just want them to have an advantage against nature and the elements and time, and I want them to have as much of themselves to bring to the world as they can possibly have. And I think that's a worthy contribution, and I feel good about that. I don't think I'm done, but I feel good about that. But if I kill myself, then I've done the opposite of that, because then they have 3 suicides in their immediate family. And, you know, I have a cousin and grandparents and a brother and a sister who both kind of gave up and died, you know, and so not doing it. It's not getting past me. So misery is not an option. And so I learned these things that I never would have set out to learn if I didn't have these parameters. But since I'm learning, what does it really take to make a human being happy? Now all I can think about every single day is, how do I explain this so that people will care, so that people will see that it relates to them, how it relates to them, and how they can benefit from the things that I'm learning, because it kills me to know it and not know how to share it. It is literally the thing that keeps me up at night. To have information and compassion at the same time in a struggling world is very hard. And I let it make me bitter once, and I let it make me tired once. And I'm determined now to not let it do that to me. So I get out ahead of things, and I assume solutions, and I assume that I will be able to, and I assume that other people will want to, and I assume good. Because I can't afford not to, and I would suggest that we can't afford not to. So we need some juxtaposition in our life. We need to start looking at the whole picture, the backside of the coin, the other side of the cup. We need to start flipping things. If you're in a situation that you can't tolerate, change the way you look at it first. Change the way you perceive it. Change it to one where you own it. And then just see what that does. You know, if you're in a relationship and every day is hell, change the way you're looking at it. You know, I started going after it as far as I just decided, you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to be nice. I'm just going to be kind. Because I don't know how to get along with this person. I don't like him very much at that time. But I love my kids. And I don't want them to suffer. And anything I do to their dad makes them suffer ultimately. Anything I do to weaken him, you know, if he's a falling down wreck when he's 55 and my kids have to take care of him, I don't want that. So I took responsibility for doing everything in my power without changing myself or my truth to being cooperative and, you know, kind. And that was some big learning for me. I'm really grateful for that. You know, still gets on my nerves, but, you know, I feel better about myself, and we have a better dynamic, and I've seen positive steps that he's taken to try to get along with me better that I don't believe I would have seen if I hadn't, you know, been a little nicer. And so, you know, and there's less tension for my kids to be steeped in, and, you know, and there's less cortisol coursing through his body, so his body's not wearing down as quickly, you know. And that's a good payoff for me. I like that. That makes me feel good. And when we feel good and we like ourselves, and then we take better care of ourselves. And then we, you know, feel better, look better, live longer. It's kind of a full circle thing. And I really think that it's the secret to fixing all of this. It's when more of us feel better, when more of us expect better for ourselves and for others. And each of us will see a different area of just outrage, and we can clean up the world. So let's flip this bitch right on her back, and then just tear little chunks of her off and just start solving them. We can do it.